Hello, ACDA Voices United colleagues. My name is Matt Hill. I am thrilled to be with you again. This is part 2 of Community Choir's Best Practices. This is a discussion about healthy operational policies. So part 1 was some artistic strategies and things to think about to maybe employ. And this is more about infrastructure of the organization and operational policies, some of which you guys implement, I'm sure, and maybe I'll have a little different perspective. As I said in the first video, which I hope you saw, you may disagree with some of what I'm going to share here. I would love to know if so. If you've got better ideas, I want to hear them. And if something resonates with you, I'd love to know that too. So we are going to talk about, just real quick, I did this in part 1, but in case you're watching part 2, having not seen it, just a quick overview of who I am. I founded a community choir organization in Nebraska in 2007 called Sing Omaha. This started with 1 adult choir and grew from there to what is now 8 choirs, kindergarten through 2nd grade in 2 areas, 3rd through 6th grade in 2 suburbs here of Omaha. 2 auditioned 7th through 12th grade choirs, a girls choir and a boys choir, and 2 adult choirs, women's choir and a mixed. I conduct those 2 and the girls choir. So we have a 4 concert season standard, I think, fall, Christmas, midwinter, March, which for us is a pop show, and a spring finale concert. Fewer concerts annually as the groups get younger. 7th through 12th graders sing all 4, and then the K-6 kids have 3 and 2 respectively. I'm also director of choral activities at Peru State, which is a state school here in Nebraska. And I'm thrilled to be serving National ACDA as the community choir's R&R. So I come to this presentation with 15 years of professional experience operating a community choir organization, both as the artistic director and executive director. So I've taken some lumps. I've had an opportunity to learn some things the hard way and to, I think, make some pretty good decisions with good collaborators around me. So I certainly don't have every answer. And again, would love if you've got some things that you'd like to share with me to hear how you operate and what you do that really works for you. But I'm hopeful that you'll take some things away here that might be useful for you and for your organization. And so we're going to dive in here. The purpose of this discussion is to provide you with some thoughts about organizational infrastructure, which helps to support the artistic mission. It provides stability within your organization, both with your board of directors, any staff that you have, certainly in the minds of your singers, but it also creates viability. The public is perceptive enough to know whether or not there's stability in an organization, and they can see that. So we are going to cover membership, recruitment, ensemble policies, branding and marketing, and the difference between those two, and finances. So that's kind of where we are headed here. In terms of membership, I think the first thing that you need to do is determine what kind of choir you want to be. We have to decide what kind of music we want to do, and that establishes the baseline criteria for the type of musician that you need in the choir. The next component is roster evaluation. Prior to recruiting and auditioning new singers, I think it's important to evaluate whether or not we have anybody currently in the choir who is harming their section and or the choir as a whole, due to their musical ability, due to attitude, attendance, general personality. Loyalty is important in a community choir. In school choirs, we get to keep singers for maybe 4 years at the high school and collegiate level. In community choirs, they can be with us for 20 or 30 years. But loyalty should not be the only factor that we consider as we mentally sort of evaluate our rosters. If there's someone who's been around for a long time but is a detriment, then we need to evaluate that. If this is not an issue for you, then that's awesome, and I would love to know your secret. But if you do have people who are maybe not as valuable as they could be in one or more ways, musically, attendance-wise, attitude-wise, it may be time to decide whether or not a re-audition or a probationary kind of conversation would be appropriate. As a first step, I think just bringing it to the attention of that member or members is sort of an obvious thing, but you have to be willing to do that. If you're averse to confrontation, or if you fear that the conversation won't be received well, maybe ask a board member or a choir member, section leader type person to be present preferably in person, but a conference call would be great. I wouldn't send an email. Don't do that. I guess it's better than nothing, but I think this is a much better conversation had in person or over the phone. And this is all coming to the conversation about culture being everything. We only get to see these singers once a week in most cases, and your great members know who the ones are who are maybe too talkative, or who are always going to be late, or who never know their music to the level that they should. They all know it. And they either think you don't, or they recognize your relationship with that person. But you owe it to the group to be the one, to be the arbiter of that, and to be where the buck stops, as it is. My philosophy is that I can train a musician who has fundamental ability to do what I need him to do. But it is nearly impossible to train somebody to be a good person, a good colleague, a good ensemble member. And sometimes the ensemble benefits by attrition, and that can be hard, especially if the group is running a little small. But it's amazing to me how many times I've experienced the right person walking out the door, facilitating more right people walking in the door. In 15 years, I've only ever had to ask 3 people to leave one of the 2 adult choirs. In all 3 instances, it was behavior that was the issue. Blatant disrespect to peers. In one case, having a phone conversation on speakerphone while I had a guest conductor in the room. That was done that afternoon. In all 3 cases, the audition or interview components to bring them on was positive. And of course, there was no indication of these potential problems. And in all 3 instances, I addressed the behavior privately and asked it to improve. When it did not, the decision was easy upon the next instances of that behavior. And the choir was both happy for and better for the move in all 3 cases. So a lot of times your singers won't say anything, but they're going to be grateful when you take care of it. So once we've done the roster evaluation and we have a pretty good sense of where we have strength, where we maybe have weaknesses, and maybe where we have people who need to find someplace else to be, then we have an idea about where we need to recruit and what we're looking for. So in terms of attracting new singers, I think it's important that we utilize our relationships first. Singers in the choir know other singers in the area, probably, right? People who sing in church with them, people that they sang in high school or college with if they went to school in the area, friends and relatives who post about singing on social media. And I think it's okay for you to be specific. Hey guys, we need 2 more tenors. I could really use a solid first soprano, or I need a really rich low alto. Anybody know anybody like that? And make sure that they're clear about what your music expectations are. Somebody with a nice voice, but who can't read may not be a fit for your choir. Maybe they are, but we need to be explicit about what those baseline expectations are so that they don't build a set of expectations in the mind of their prospective auditionee that then gets disappointed. Another area to consider is music educators in the area, particularly those who are teaching elementary and middle school. They're not as busy with musicals and other after-school activities is the reason why. I have a number of music educators who sing in one of my 2 adult choirs who say that they enjoy being on the other side of the podium. It's nice to be an artist, but this also helps them get perspective about how they run their own rehearsals. And they can truly illustrate the balance of lifelong singing with a professional career to their students. I think it's wonderful for their choristers to know that their director is still participating in a choir. I would make connections with local colleges and universities. They're not always eager to share singers, but their graduates are going to need a choir to call home, and you should be their destination. So become friends with those choir directors. You likely know who they are anyway, but offer to go in and run sectionals, maybe provide scholarships if you charge tuition for choir, maybe in the first year out of college, offer that recent college graduate an opportunity to come and sing for free. They're a leader in your group, and then the next year they can jump on the tuition bandwagon. Everybody benefits with infusion of music students, whether they were music majors or not. Singing in a collegiate choir is certainly valuable experience to bring to a community group. The last thing is sort of a caution. I would avoid scheduling cattle call audition days. Most people don't respond, and what you're going to get is likely not to meet your needs. I think it's much better to be strategic. And while appointments take more time, both in terms of having the initial conversation to schedule and then in terms of blocking out the time, they are much more productive in my experience. Which leads me to then what does that audition look like? We all have our ideas about this. I would love to know your best practices, but in my experience, the things that I've learned to do and not to do are are proving to be really helpful for us as we continue to grow as an organization here at Sing Omaha. For me, the actual audition is 50% music and 50% personality. I'm evaluating musical skill personally, but I'm also evaluating who this is as a person. Are they going to be a good fit? I think having a phone conversation first to answer basic questions and as a first layer of vetting is a really good idea. If you feel good about the prospect after that call, invite them to an in-person audition. The phone conversation can be shorter if you put together a little PDF of your operational policies. This is what the season looks like. Here's what the uniform is and how much it costs. This is our tuition. Here's the season calendar. If you can just send them a PDF, you don't have to answer those questions for 15 auditionees, but that phone conversation sort of can give you an idea about their experience, their level of enthusiasm. You can share with them your artistic expectations, and they'll be honest with you by either getting back to you and scheduling an audition or not, because it's not a fit for them. Secondly, I would avoid asking for prepared solos. I really don't think that's an accurate indicator of people's musicianship. They are polished and they're a snapshot. I think it's much better to assess range and timbre with exercises in the low and high ends of their range, and then to have them sing through the first half of something they know. My Country 'Tis of Thee, Amazing Grace, A Christmas Carol, it doesn't really matter. What you're looking for is malleability. You're gonna get a good sense of pitch matching, rhythm, tone, right, timbre. You can ask them to sing across the dynamic spectrum there. You can also transpose up and down to get a good sense of how they feel in a range of about an octave, up and down a third or fourth. The other thing I would do is provide a sight reading sample, and I would use, rather than just a little single line exercise, a section of an octava that you have performed or that you're going to perform. That's real life. I mean, that's what they're going to have to do. So you don't expect it to be perfect the first time, but if you run it through with a syllable, or you have them count, sing, or however you do it, and then have them speak the text in rhythm, and then have them put it together and sing it once or twice, they should be able to give you 8 to 12 to 16 bars in about 5 or 6 minutes. And you're going to know pretty quickly there. But the unison single line stuff just doesn't work. It's not practical. Having them sing on solfege, especially if they don't know it, is not practical. That's not real life for them in a weekly rehearsal. So when you're done singing, that's the opportunity for you to ask them if they have any other questions, and then to either welcome them to the ensemble or to share ideas where you think they might need some improvement, and then refer them out to a private voice teacher or another choir in the area. If you don't think they're ever going to be a fit for your choir, send them someplace else. Don't leave them hanging and think that maybe they could come back. If there's a possibility that they, with some refinement, could be a successful auditionee for your group in 6 months or a year, send them to a voice teacher and tell them explicitly what it is that you think they need to work on. I think people appreciate honesty if they need improvement, and you are much more sincere if you can provide resources for them. You can't control whether they pursue them or not, but if you're sincere in saying, I really think that with 6 months of voice lessons focused on fundamental music theory, a little bit of sight reading, and tone production would be really helpful for you, right? If they've been in their high school or collegiate choir but haven't sung in 10 or 12 years, it might just be that they need to polish it up, and you'll know that. And lastly, I don't wait to email them with results or to call them back. They've given you the time on the phone and in person if you follow this procedure, and they deserve a decision in that moment. And they're going to be thrilled walking out if they're a good fit. Don't make them wait. And if they're not a good fit, don't dangle it in front of them. You all understand that. We've all been there. So then we move to ensemble policies and procedures. How do we actually operate? Attendance. This is a big issue for everybody. School choirs, church choirs, community groups. In the community group, it's a little different because we don't generally have anything as an accountability check and balance for the singers. But as you know, there's no substitute for being in rehearsal. So I would be careful about attendance policies that allow for a specific number of absences, because I think people are going to take whatever you give them. If you say you get 2 per semester, they're going to take 2 per semester, even if one night they could be there, but they're deep into a movie or something. My approach is to say that I expect everyone to be in rehearsal every week. I know that's not possible, and I roll with absences as they come, but my singers know that they're to contact me directly via phone or text if they're unable to attend. And if they know in advance, I ask them to let me know ASAP, just as a heads up. And then obviously to remind me as the date gets closer. I also ask them to tell someone in their section in the event that I forget. It's just an accountability mechanism for me. I always take attendance out loud at the beginning of rehearsal. This is less about accountability, though it does have that effect, and more about ensuring that everyone's accounted for. If somebody's missing that we didn't expect to be gone, I ask a singer to call or text or Facebook message or something, whoever that is, to see if that absent member is okay. This, I think, achieves two things. It lets everybody know that their presence is noticed and that they matter. The people in the room know that if they're gone, they're going to be asked about. The second is that it makes people aware that we're keeping track of who is and who isn't in the room at a corporate level, meaning that their absence is noticed by everyone. So now, if absenteeism becomes a trend for someone, I find it best to connect with that singer by phone as soon as it's convenient. Sometimes life happens, we get that, but the health of the ensemble is critical. So sometimes I'll ask a singer to sit out for a concert or two, depending on how many rehearsals they have to miss, to ensure that the choir's preparation isn't going to be negatively impacted by an underprepared singer. And they understand that if you're upfront with them. And sometimes they'll come to me and say, look, I've just got too many work commitments this semester. Can I come back in January? And we'll have that conversation. Please note that I handle this on a case-by-case basis. I do not make this a blanket policy. This factors individual musicianship, their ability to learn on their own, their commitment to the ensemble, their attendance history, their role in their section, if they're a great glue member, but maybe not a leader, versus if they're, my pro musician, my music educator anchor in that section. The reason, I guess, for their absence is also a factor, right? If they are committed at work, that's one thing. If they're in a volleyball league, maybe that's something else. I am slow to dismiss singers from the choir, having only done so a handful of times, but cancerous members must exit quickly. As I said in part one, your standards become what you're willing to accept, and that includes membership as well. So the next thing to consider is sectionals. We all know about these. They're super productive, of course, if they're run well. I would do these during your rehearsal time, and I would certainly do them early in the season. Even if you can't split into four, rehearsing the sopranos and altos together and the tenors and basses together provides enough isolation to focus in on areas that need help. If you have a second rehearsal space, ask your pianist or a section leader to run one sectional while you run the other. If you don't have a separate space, consider asking the sopranos and altos to come for the first half, the first 30 minutes, and the tenors and basses to stay for the last 30 minutes. So within your rehearsal window, you don't get as much full ensemble time, but that dedicated time can make the following week's full ensemble time much more productive. You might also consider a bi-weekly Zoom sectional to help teach notes. Bridges the gap for absent folks and can allow you to really focus in on trouble spots. This could be led by a section leader with a rehearsal recording as a tool that you've provided if you're not available or if your pianist isn't available. So this doesn't all have to be you. And then the next thing I would really consider putting together what I'm calling Choir 101. This is a crash course in rehearsal etiquette and procedure, which is helpful for new and veteran members. I would do it either in your first rehearsal or in your early season retreat. I would share your score marking vocabulary, use a check mark for breath, a dashed line means no breath, or whatever it is that you're using, just so that there's consistency. You can talk through rehearsal flow expectations, encouraging singers to ask questions, for instance, but ensuring that the timing is appropriate. Like don't ask me a question about the Kyrie when we're singing Shenandoah, right? That might seem like a no-brainer to us as musicians, but it might not occur to somebody in the choir that that's inappropriate. You can share sight reading tips, maybe spend some time with Sight Reading Factory. You might consider using that in weekly rehearsals as a part of your warm-up regimen as well. The subscriptions are very affordable. This is also a good opportunity to give them an intro to IPA. If you use IPA, it avoids my PA, that's when I just write in my syllable, whatever I think it should look like. It provides some consistency, and you can buy those laminated IPA 8.5 by 11 sheets to hang in your room very affordably. And I think that's good. Having a shared vocabulary, I think, is important. Then giving them general tips. Write the next note in the margin at a page turn. If you sing at the downbeat of the page turn, write that next note and maybe the lyric in the margin so that you're not going to miss that on the page turn. When you're stagger breathing, decrescendo before you have to take a breath. Decrescendo out, get a good breath, don't feel like you have to sneak back in, and then crescendo back in, right? I mean, that's a good tip, and they'll get that. You practice it with them one time. It's taken less than 60 seconds for you to create a new tool for your singers. I ask my sopranos and altos to modify their vowels to O when they get to the fourth line, treble staff D or higher. Sing the consonants, of course, if possible, but for instance, the lyric "shine on bright star" above the staff, at the top of the staff and above, becomes "shone on brot stol." It just gives a much more beautiful tone under which the rest of the sections can carry the lyric. But the sopranos set the tone then for the ensemble. The modified tone actually creates a canopy of resonance over the top of the choir that's going to color that full ensemble timbre. So that's, again, you're up to your personal preference, but from a pedagogical standpoint, I think that's a really good standard rule. You can always change it, of course, but if they build that habit, it means you don't have to address it every time. I think that's important. So you may have other policies and procedure things that you're interested in, but I think these are big ones. Having an attendance policy and knowing how you're going to handle individual experiences, budgeting time for sectionals, whether it's during your rehearsal time or outside, and then this choir 101 thing, I think can be really fruitful. If you invest a little time up front, help them to know how to rehearse and how to mark their scores, you're going to save a lot of time. Which then brings us to, now that we have the choir together and we're making music and we're learning and we're ready to go and share our work with the community, we need to be branded and we need to market that brand. So here's a quick overview. Branding is defining who you are as an organization, as a company, as a choir. This branding is strategic. Okay, branding and marketing are two different things. Marketing is the deployment of those strategies to promote your brand. This is the tactical component. This is taking what you've branded and then figuring out how to take it to the community, to the market. So a couple things to consider in terms of branding. Your choir certainly has a name. I think it's important to evaluate whether or not that name still represents who you are as a group. If it doesn't, it's time to consider a rebrand. And if that's the case, ask whether or not the market, non-musicians, can ascertain who you are by your name and logo. If your choir has a Latin name or another foreign language name, you might consider that it's potentially unapproachable for non-artists, which is fine if you and your singers like it, your board likes it. If it's a 50-year tradition, you might not be changing it. But you might have a harder time attracting younger singers. And you might have a harder time attracting corporate advertisers who can't relate. So it's not to say it can't be done, but there's going to be more communication required there. If you don't have a logo, it's time to get one. It's time to get one. You might have a designer in your choir who could do this for you gratis. Undergraduate graphic designers love real market opportunities and work cheaper than professional firms, but you might get a professional firm to give you a nonprofit discount. And if not, it's worth trying to fundraise for and get that done. You can see the Sing Omaha logo behind me. Studios goes away, choirs replaces it on our choirs programs, but the symbol and then the word mark, which is that Sing Omaha, is standard and is everywhere, follows us everywhere. And a brand is more than a logo and the name. Other considerations include a standardized color palette, fonts, graphics, other images, your slogan if there is one, a shape maybe. For us, it's that SO circle there. Think like Apple, the tech company. You don't have to see the word Apple. They don't even say that in writing anymore. You just see the symbol. And then your website and social media channels, all your printed materials, whether it's brochures, concert programs, need to have a consistent feel. That means consistent fonts, consistent colors. Doesn't mean it all has to look the same, but it needs to be from the same family. And that helps your members and your clientele and the general public identify and relate to you as a brand. So once you're branded, you have a ton of opportunities to market that brand. Your singers are your best marketers. They are the most invested and passionate representatives of your organization, and they will support your cause for free. This is a no-brainer. We need to mobilize our folks, and we need to tell them that we need them to do it, right? This is not intuitive. So we need to be honest with them and upfront about what we need. Social media channels, you got to get on and you got to get active. There are some conversations about the viability of Facebook, but it's still a must. And now that it owns Instagram, you can tie Facebook posts to Instagram that'll immediately populate there. Twitter's a little hit or miss depending on your demographic, but not necessarily worth avoiding. I would maybe just think about different content that might be appropriate for Twitter. I think children's choirs and youth choirs can effectively use Snapchat and TikTok, but these are not necessary for adult ensembles. It's just not where they are. If this is not your area of passion or expertise, I would recruit a singer. If you have a budget, then go hire somebody, but it might be better just to try to utilize somebody within your organization. But either way, make it a priority. Make it a priority. Create a Google Sheet with tabs for each month. You can list the days down column A, your themes down column B, Throwback Thursday, for instance, midweek music, where maybe you share past recordings or recordings of music that you'd like to do. Use column C for links to content. If there's a meme you're going to share, or if there's an article that you want to share about healthy singing or the value of choir, just link it in column C. I think having a theme, a Throwback Thursday thing, is great. It makes it a little easier. You can program for the month pretty quickly with old images or concert programs. And there are tools for pre-scheduling posts that can help to make this efficient too. You can sit down for a couple hours and program a whole month out that'll automatically post for you then. You might consider delegating this to a volunteer, again, if it's not your skill set or your area of passion, but I would make sure you're checking in with them monthly about the content to ensure what's going public represents you and your organization well, and to help guide the next month's worth of content. And then I think you need to be an engaged participant yourself. As the director, I try to engage with all our posts. I like, I comment, I tag people, I share. And sometimes that can get a little exhausting, but I think it's important that they see your members, they being your members and they being the public, that you are invested and engaged in this way. Of course you're invested and engaged, but there's something to be said about participating, particularly when things are silly. They want to know that you can be silly too. I do a weekly vlog that's 4 to 5 minutes long. Lately, it had been COVID updates, just kind of how we're operating. But they like concert behind the scenes kinds of things, fundraiser promos. And whether we like it or not, our singers and the community want to hear from us. We are the face of the organization, and while we're not necessarily always comfortable being that in terms of celebrity or whatever, we need to be. We need to be. So you need to embrace that. Another consideration here is to think about reciprocal or in-kind relationships. Maybe you could offer to run ads for other local arts organizations in your concert programs in exchange for the same thing. It costs you nothing, and you're likely to reach a similar demographic. There's probably going to be a cross-section, but other community choirs, dance studios if you've got children, symphony orchestra, a wind band, right? A community theater. There are a number of places where you might be able to make some relationships and get some free advertising in exchange for giving them free advertising. That's easy. And then if you're not using any newsletter, I would. You can send it monthly or bi-monthly. It doesn't have to be quarterly if you want to. Keep it short, keep it informative. A feature about the upcoming concert, audition announcements are great. Highlight a staff person, highlight a volunteer. Whatever, depending on the size of your choir or organization, there are a number of different areas of content. You could delegate, can have a section leader corner where they're talking about the social night that they had. The tenors and basses went to see a silly movie together, whatever it was, right? I mean, it just depends on what the culture is of your organization, but those e-newsletter subscriptions are really affordable and I think worth it. Not really a whole lot of work that can get you pretty strong reach. And so then we've got to have money to operate, right? We want to get the word out, but we also have to have money to do that. So let's talk about financial strategies. The board in many organizations is helpful, and in some organizations is not as helpful. And so I think it's important to evaluate that first. In my opinion and experience, the board should serve 2 primary purposes and 1 secondary purpose. Primary purposes are to raise money and to raise awareness. Raising money can come in the form of private gifts, maybe they're giving cash, corporate sponsorships that they go and find for you, in-kind donations like we talked about, maybe a printer who in exchange for an ad prints your programs for free or at a substantial discount. That's great. Your board should also personally commit to an agreed upon amount of personal contribution that they are either going to give themselves or that they're going to get from other donors. The second component, raising awareness, that is to get the community, the non-member, non-musical community, to be aware of you and who you are. They could speak or schedule you to speak at a Rotary, at their tips group, other organizations like that. They could promote your organization within their personal and professional networks. There are, particularly for sole proprietors, a number of people who might be interested in buying an ad or just giving a donation. And then there are things that the board should not be doing. And if your board is doing these things, it's time to evaluate and have a conversation about maybe amending your bylaws even to change the role and responsibility of the board. They should not have any input whatsoever into the artistic content unless the artistic director solicits that input. They should also not have any authority over concert style, venues, guest artists, specific titles, or anything to do with the nature of the operation. That is not their role, that's your role. So I understand that sometimes we inherit boards, sometimes we inherit bylaws. Those things can be changed. And you are the anchor. You're the cornerstone of your choir or of your organization, and the board should be supportive of you. That doesn't mean that you operate autonomously. They're an accountability mechanism for you, but they are not above you, and they should not be your peer in terms of operation. The board exists to serve, and the best way for them to do so is to help the organization remain financially viable through fundraising and through raising awareness, period. That's it. If you want to talk more about that, I would be happy to. The next thing to do, and I'm surprised sometimes to hear that organizations are not charging for tuition. This does not have to be expensive, but a modest tuition helps to solidify their commitment. It creates accountability, and the money can help to defray some costs. It's probably going to support the whole thing, but it's going to help. And the other thing is charge for tickets to your events. Again, maybe this is a silly thing to say, but relying on pass the hat donations is unreliable. And I think it does a disservice to your singers. It sort of cheapens the experience, in my opinion. There's a viability that comes with having to buy a ticket. And I would use a third-party app to manage your ticket sales. Don't do cash, don't take checks, have them get on an app. I use Eventbrite. It's easy and convenient. They charge a modest fee per transaction, which you can either absorb or pass along to the buyer. I mean, it's like 60 cents or something for a $10 ticket. The convenience for me is worth it, and it removes any need for cash handling, which is huge. So if you're not charging for tickets, do so, please. You're not doing the community a favor. Unless you get a grant that says this concert is for free and is supported by XYZ Foundation, great. But as an operational policy, as a general way to operate, offering free concerts, I think, does a disservice to your choir, to your organization. The next area is sales opportunities. You can sell ads in your concert programs. I hope you guys are all doing this. Reach out to business owners that you know. Your singers work for and patronize businesses. Start there. If you go to a restaurant after weekly rehearsals, ask them if they want to buy an ad. Sole proprietors, again, are great. Insurance agents, realtors, CPAs, auto mechanics, local music stores, especially if you're buying your music from them. And if you're not, you should. You can use online vendors to search and to buy some things, but call your local music store. And if they can order music for you, it is invaluable to have relationships with those folks. And they'll absolutely buy ads in your programs because they know that your demographic are musicians. Piano tuner might buy an ad. You've got a bunch of people in the audience with pianos at home that need to be tuned, and maybe they'll tune for free in exchange for an ad. It doesn't always have to be cash. And then think about people in businesses with whom you've personally had relationships for a period of time and approach them. The worst that you can hear is a friendly no, and you're more likely to get a yes than you think. And then again, these in-kind offerings, offer ads to businesses in exchange for free or discounted services. These are no-brainers for organizations that are willing to do it. A printer could print your programs. A florist, maybe they're providing flowers for the concert, poinsettias at Christmas time. Maybe your CPA will give you a discount or do your annual filing for free in exchange for an annual quarter-page ad. I mean, this stuff adds up financially at the end. The next sounds a little old school maybe, but I just did this during COVID, just this last Christmas. Record a CD and do it, make a hard copy and not a digital copy. And I'm going to explain why I think it's important. First, this is not as overwhelming as it might seem, and it can be quite lucrative. The easiest thing to do is to hire an engineer and to record your live concert. I do this, I pay an engineer to record all of our concerts. I don't distribute them and I don't sell them all the time, but I do that. I have an engineer who understands choral music in my concerts all the time. And I pay him $250 a concert. It's an easy $1,000 check to write every year. This is very affordable. It's all done online in terms of getting the mechanical rights. And then local companies or web-based firms can print the discs for you very affordably, depending on your quantity. The downside here is that the music can't be edited if they just come and get a live concert. And the recording is going to include a crying baby or a cough or that kind of thing. But this shouldn't necessarily stop you. If you've got recordings from previous years, do a best of and pick your favorite and best recordings. I did this at Christmas as an opportunity to raise some funds during COVID when we were not generating the revenue that we're accustomed to pay our bills here. I compiled a 2 CD set of a best of at Christmas, and it was incredibly successful. Alternatively, but more expensively, book a space and hire an engineer to record a CD's worth of music over 4 or 5 sessions. You should budget 1 hour of recording time per 3 to 4 minute track. That's just the time. This is going to allow you to splice into sections to perfect the recording, and it omits any extraneous noise. It's going to net a higher quality recording. I'm sure you've all been a part of that, maybe at the collegiate level or in other areas. In either case, you should sell corporate ads to be included in the CD booklet. This revenue should cover the cost of production and may actually net a profit as well. Then, of course, you sell the CDs to the members and to your organization's network. Email your concert goers. I hope you're keeping a list of them. If you start doing electronic tickets, you'll have that. Keep a database. Post ads on your social media channels and share the opportunity to buy ads with friends, family, coworkers, church members. People sell cookies and popcorn for their kids all the time. This is no different. I know that maybe CDs are a little out of fashion, but you'd be surprised how many people are willing to purchase a tangible hard copy CD. And frankly, that's the only way to show a real value to your advertisers. I can tell the advertisers we're going to sell 1,000 CDs with a booklet in it that has your 2-page layout. They're inclined to give a $1,000 gift for that. If we're saying it's available for download, they may not be. As I said, this past Christmas, we made a double CD best of set. Between tickets and sponsorships, we profited about $15,000 after the licensing fees and production for 500 CDs. And that also included, that profit is post-shipping costs. Most of our buyers picked up in person, but we did have about 50 orders that had to get shipped out. We sold 282 double CD sets at $20 each and $19,000 in ads at $1,000 each for a 2-page layout in color. The cost of licensing and production was approximately $4,000. We also gave away 80 CDs to sponsors, foundations who've supported us in the past, our landlords, because we have 2 studio locations, and to prospective future board members. We are left with about 170 double CD sets, which we can sell or give away next Christmas. We've already profited on the project, so it's not hurting anything. Because the music isn't dated, it can be shared next year. It's no big deal. The only thing that dates the project is my mention in the booklet of the fact that this was to help provide some COVID relief, but that's not going to stop anybody from enjoying the music. Grants. Please note here that I'm only talking to federal nonprofits. But if you don't already have somebody at your state's local arts council office, you need to get to know someone. The grant writing process is not as daunting as it might seem, and much of the material needed for each grant repeats itself. So once you've completed one, the next one is much more efficient. If you do this, go to the review panel meeting. They get the applications and then they put a panel together and they're going through the applications. You are invited to be present. You can't speak, but you should be in the room. Being in the room can dissuade panelists from naysaying your application and can get you a front row seat to see for yourself how those deliberations unfold, which can help you to improve your application the next time. Regardless of the outcome, whether you're given your grant or not, follow up with your contact at the Arts Council to ask for feedback. Most are happy to guide you towards successful outcomes. So identify local foundations and follow their application procedure exactly. Contact a representative to introduce yourself and your choir or organization, even if they don't explicitly support the arts. You may have a project that's of interest, or they may know of other resources for you to explore. So as we conclude here, all the time and effort that we put into planning and executing the musical side of our choir's healthy operational policies absolutely help to maximize those efforts and to create effective, efficient, and enjoyable experiences for everyone involved. Hope is not a strategy. So you need to develop a plan, execute the strategies to meet those goals. Growth happens through deliberate behaviors that are repeatable and well articulated. So take the time to build a strong foundation on which your community choir can operate and over which your artistic endeavors can thrive as a result. It has been my absolute pleasure to share some thoughts with you. I am so excited about the future of community choirs in our country, as I shared in the first presentation. I would love to hear from you. If you've got great ideas or if I can be of any assistance, please reach out. My website is in the bottom left-hand corner of all these slides. I'm easily reached there. I'm also pretty easy to find on social media. So don't hesitate to reach out if you've got questions or if you've got other best practices that I should be considering and that I can share with colleagues in community choirs around the country. I would love, love, love to know that. So please don't hesitate to reach out. I would love to connect with you. And I wish you the absolute best as you continue to consume the efforts of your other presenters here at this conference. Thanks again so much to the committee for inviting me to participate and to contribute. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great end of your summer and a wonderful launch to your new season. It's been my pleasure to be with you.